Hey guys, it's me, EODGamer here, and some of you are actually worried recently because of the fluctuations in terms of price of Exalted Orbs to Divine Orbs. Just a few days ago, it was like 130, going to 140, and now suddenly it's crashing back to 100. In the early stages of the game, it's like 1:4 kind of thing. And in this video, I want to explain to you the concept of Divines versus Exalted. What is the better store of your wealth so you can grow your wealth safely, get all the endgame items, and do whatever you want. Maybe even get a mirror of Calandra eventually once you grow your wealth enough as well. Now, first things first, I always like to be straight to the point and go directly into the numbers. Let's first talk about the economics of things. A lot of you might not be very familiar with economics in the real world. So I'll share with you my experience as a professional in the real world for finance, exactly in a super easy and simple fashion to understand. So Divines versus Exalts is, in the economic sense, is really about a demand and supply kind of thing. The first question that we always will have is, why is the Divine price tanking right now? This is of course very time sensitive. Depending on when you are watching this video, it might be going up, it might be going down, but basically as of time recording, it's coming down right now for Divines because of a simple analogy. Let's just put it in a simple sense. Gold versus silver. The best analogy that I have is Divine Orbs are like gold, whereas Exalted Orbs are like silver in the real world. Gold is a lot more expensive than silver. However, the actual use case outside of jewelry for silver is much higher. So gold is mainly used in terms of like jewelry, storage of wealth, showing that you have a lot of money, and maybe other like conductivity kind of things in the real world. However, silver goes a much longer way in manufacturing. There's a lot more use cases for silver as well. And of course, they are much more common. So this is a great analogy to describe both of them. And it's also a huge reason why Divine price is tanking. If we talk about the users of Divine Orbs versus the users of Exalted Orbs, we regularly use Exalted Orbs to check for gear in hopes of some gear being good in the mid-game right now, early to mid-game where most of us are in terms of like the economy state. Divine Orbs, on the other hand, are used to check really good gear, perfect gear that are worth multiple Divines. If we look at the overall landscape of prices, you probably are still buying gear for like 1 Divine, maybe 2 Divines. Some of you richer folks are buying uniques, maybe for 10, 20, 30, 100 Divines. In those cases, you rarely need to check the gear with Divine Orbs. So the use cases for Divine Orbs are near to zero right now, only if you're like a upper echelon mega leviathan. That's when these people are actually using a lot of Divine Orbs to actually check gear. But for vast majority of us, we use a lot of Exalted. And that is also reflected in the price. So right now, is there a cause for concern if it's tanking? The answer is, in the near term, the answer is no. Divine Orbs are still a lot more rarer compared to Exalted Orbs. And in the long term, when we go around into like the late game, where more of us have perfect gear, when gear no longer costs us 1 Divine, 2 Divine, but maybe we'll have to play like 10, 20 Divines in like 6 months time or something like that, that's when Divine Orbs people will actually check gear to make them even more perfect, to try like sell the perfect gear onto the market as well. So Divine Orbs are excellent storage and in the long term of wealth, but Exalted has a lot more use cases, and we all transact in Exalted, right? If you're buying whether it's armor scraps, whether it's buying catalysts, or whether you're selling stuff, most of us are selling everything in Exalted prices. So it becomes like the common man's currency. There's a lot of burn cases for the currency as well. So Exalted definitely still has a solid use case. Is it a cause for concern? The answer is no. It's just a near-term fluctuation. In a sense, people were FOMO at one time, selling off all the Exalteds for Divines. That's what drive the prices up. But nowadays, as it's coming back down, people realize that actually Exalteds might not be as rare as 1:140. People are starting to come back down to the reality that Exalted still have a place. Of course, more needs to be said, and that is the next part here. What exactly affects the prices of these two things? Now that we know like why there are some short-term fluctuations, at the same time there's more than meets the eye, what affects prices? One, supply and demand. If you have a lot of Divine Orbs being dropped, if you have a lot of Exalteds being dropped, that's a supply side issue. If you can duplicate Divines, maybe there's a bug going on, those will all affect things as well. On the other hand, demand is a huge thing. Right now in the early to mid game, demand for Exalted is very high because we are using it to craft, you're looking it for like checking gear. Some of us are even using like 3 to 4 Exalted to check a decent piece as well. And then we find out that the piece is like garbage, dump it, waste the Exalted, but it's used as a crafting methodology. But later on, once you have a bit more, as we mentioned, Divine Orbs are used to roll gear to get the highest stat possible as more pieces are becoming perfect. It's hard to justify using 1 Divine when your gear currently doesn't even cost 1 Divine, right? That's one of the reasons why the burn rate for Divine Orbs are a lot lower as well. Next thing, externalities. Now, externalities is a huge thing that affects prices in the real world and also in the game. One of the biggest things that's coming right up soon is also patches. Maybe Stormweavers are too OP, too much rarity drop rate as well. If they lower the drop rate in terms of how much things are being spawned, you will likely see the value of Exalted going up because Divines are rarer. They are hardly dropped to begin with. People that are farming, mass farming right now are actually mass farming Exalted in a lot of sense. Whereas Divines, you need a large majority of people to gather it. And for example, if stuff are affected, you might get it on both ends, but these are all certain things. For example, previously they lowered the drop rate of Chaos, increased the drop rate of Exalted. That shifted the prices of Exalted as well as Chaos. Patches are very, very key. We will cover it on the channel timely for you guys as well, especially those of you who are subscribed as members of channel. We really will do our best to help you manage your overall wealth in Path of Exile 2. Next up, other than externalities, for example, like bugs, people with this like temporalist bug that people are duplicating the stuff and you're not allowed to abuse such things as well. We don't encourage any of that on our channels against the terms of use. These kind of things affect supply and demand, which is also another thing why we could see a near-term drop as a lot of these accounts that have been hoarding a lot of money get banned. So it removes a lot of supply from the market as well. People that sold off a lot of these temporalists with a lot of divines, now they all either are selling the Exalted, trying to get rid of it, move it to other sources before their accounts get banned as developers are back and stuff like that. Next up, of course, is momentum. Momentum is driven by market movement. When you see your prices, for example, you go back into the game over here and you see like the market now tanking instead of 101 or like 140 just a few days ago, now it goes to 101. You as a person will be very inclined to start selling. You want to like dump as much as you can on the market. You want to get out of the market because you want to preserve your wealth. Now you might be even shifting a lot of your assets into Exalted as well for fear that maybe you will eventually crash. The market will crash to like 0 or like 1:4 again. That is a huge part of things. Momentum is driven by fear. It's driven by psychology. And in a sense, momentum that was seen driven all the way to 140 will arguably push because of fear that Exalteds are way too common. But now that we have seen like more or less a bottom in the market, you kind of like gauge in the near term, 140, 130, 140 was driven by fear. Nowadays, people are like going the other way. So you can kind of see a nice bottom based on the trend that we are seeing on the market. So now that we talk about all the reasons for how economics works relating to the game, the next part, which is the more important part really, is how do we profit from this? What do we need to know? And I'll share with you a few steps. First is the asset allocation strategy of how to profit. We can never predict whether Exalteds are going up. Exalted go up. Whoops, I am accidentally clicking buttons here. Didn't mean to press that, but Exalted prices are going up, or for example, Divine prices are going down and stuff like that. It's very hard to predict. You never really know like what is the trend. So the best way to do this is actually hedge your assets. And hedging works in real life as well. You never store all of your money in one Pokemon card. You want a couple of Pokemon cards, so when people do want to buy more of it, you generally everything goes up rather than just buying something that eventually people think is worthless. In a game, currency works exactly the same way. You want to hedge your bets. My recommendation is follow a 20-80 rule, but this is just a large rule of thumb. You can go a 50-50, you can go a 40-80. Why do I choose a slightly favored ratio for Divine rather than Exalted? One is because you don't want too much Exalted. It's very, very difficult and cumbersome to move around. So I want a minimal amount of Exalted. So 20 for Exalted, 80 ratio for Divines so that you can have a larger store. You don't have like 1,000 Exalteds and stuff. But some of you can also go down to a 10-90 rule if you wanted to. If you put it in at 1090, for example, you will then be able to do like a lot of other stuff with it as well. Especially those of you who have a lot more net worth, and allocate therefore. So what this allows you to do is, if divine prices go up, let's say that 1090 right now, divine pumps up. Now you are left with somewhere in a ratio of like 991 because of the spike in divine prices relative to your exalteds. What this is, you made money from divines, you can simply just reallocate and shift this one number back. But because your pot size has grown larger, you don't care exactly what it is because your overall pizza has grown larger. You made money from divines, you shift it over to exalted, and when exalted, for example, goes back to like this, where it pumps up relative to divine, you take the exalted, you shift it back, you asset allocate, and at the end of the day, your pie, your piece of the puzzle is a lot larger. We do this in the real world as well, equities versus bonds and other asset classes. Whenever you have certain momentum, you just shift from one over the other, you ignore any near-term price movements, and you profit a lot from it as well. Now, next up, of course, this is very hard to do. How exactly do you get a 20/80 rule, a 10/90 rule? So for those of you who are members of the channel as well, and those of you who aren't as well, I totally understand. If you are supporting the channel, thank you very much as well. We will provide all these spreadsheets as well to you to use if you support us. Otherwise, you can easily do this sheet yourself, however it may be. For example, I have 100 exalted right now with 10 divines, and the current price is 109. This tells me exactly what is the ratio that I should be keeping my assets in. For example, 100 exalts, 10 divine assets, and now the current price is 109. I'm looking to go for a 1090, so I put in 0.1. It tells me that the recommended amount of exalts to store is 209. Recommended divines to have is like 9, and that will give me a nice 10:90 ratio as well for the assets that I have. So this way, if the prices plummet, for example, now if it tanks to like 80, right? If it crashes, so that amount that I have, I can simply just take the exalteds that I have, which was like 200 plus, go ahead and buy in new ones. So let's just give a case study here. So right now, this is my amount of assets. Let's say I follow this strategy over here. This is the amount of assets that I have. And now this prices tank now to like 80 out of 100. So because I was at this allocation here, I just paste this over here. You can see, so I started off with this. Let me just show you an example of how this hedging strategy works. This is how much I had. This is after I applied the 10 and 90 rule. And now prices tank. So this is what I have currently. Prices tank and I reallocate back to the 1090 rule. And at the end of the day, this is what I'm left with at the end, which is 129.10, which I profit from the movements in exalted prices already. Because exalted prices pump, I profit from it. I reallocate to my strategy. But of course, this strategy is not perfect. It's not 100% money making. If your divine prices pump by the same amount, let's say 10-20%, you will also be losing a little bit of money, but you hedge that downside risk in terms of the strategy. So deploying this strategy, great for exalted because now you have more allocated and exalted, but you split your losses 50-50, and every time you get a reallocation, you just keep rolling. This way you maintain your asset allocation. You don't care what the economy does to you. You will eventually be much more profitable and you'll keep growing your wealth. So you don't even need to bother about currency fluctuations if you follow this rule. And if you like this spreadsheet, you find it very helpful, do consider subscribing as a member of the channel as well to help us out. Otherwise, you can build one for yourself too. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you found this helpful. To follow more economic tips, just follow the channel. We will have more of these out for you guys. Every time patch changes, stuff changes, everything updates, the economy is always moving. And thank you guys so much for watching. Check these 2 other videos out as well if you want to know how to make more money in Path of Exile 2. See you guys in the next video.